this is one of my favorite events. I'm Mia Self. I'm an assistant director with the University Theater program, and I'm so excited that you are here today with our University Theater Out Loud program and our annual collaboration with the NC State Libraries. I'm going to pass it over to Marian Fragola, who's going to let us know about what you're going to see tonight.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marian Fragola. I'm the Program Planning and Outreach Director at the NC State University Libraries. I am so excited for tonight. This has been a long time in coming and a long time in planning, and it could not have been done without Mia Self and Nico Peaks, who you'll meet in a little bit. We have been doing band books on stage at NC State for 9 years. And because of the extraordinary circumstances of this year, we have been able to bring back alums who have participated in this program all the way back to 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, and now it's 2020. And in counting up the number of students who have participated in this program throughout the years, it was almost 60 people. It was 59 students who have participated. And we have an amazing cast of all of which these students have participated in the past, and they've come back together to bring you this evening's program. So I just couldn't be more excited about it. I'm going to drop a link to the program in the chat so you'll see all the works that we'll be experiencing tonight. And then I'm going to hand it back to Mia, who's going to explain to you about what Readers Theater is and how the program's going to work.
So the most important aspect of band books is the actual act of reading. And we're used to seeing theatrical performances where the actors have memorized everything and they are reciting from memory as if those words were occurring for the first time. But here we're celebrating the actual act of reading itself. So you'll notice that the presenters are actually reading that text aloud, and they're going to tell you prior to those readings what it is that inspired them to choose those particular works. Oftentimes they're works of fiction. They are works that have oftentimes been banned or challenged because of controversial language or subject matter. So you may be hearing words or terms that may surprise you, that you're not going to hear in everyday conversation. But they do tend to be the things that are part of our everyday thinking lives or are present at significant moments where we're dealing with things in stress and strife. So I hope that you'll embrace the spirit of allowing people to deeply connect through material that's sometimes challenging. Terminology-wise, a challenge is someone has requested that a book come off the shelf. When it's banned, it has actually been taken off the shelf. And we've got the Office of Intellectual Freedom, which is an organization that's partnered with the American Library Association. And beginning in 2001, they started collecting the data on the number of bans and challenges that were happening around the country. So knowledge is power with that. So Nico Peaks is going to coordinate the events that are happening tonight. We're so very pleased that he took the time to do that. And we hope that you will enjoy what you're hearing. I'll be dropping in the readers and the pieces that are being read, as well as the authors, so that you can go back to your favorite local bookstore and purchase those later if you want to find out more information about these works. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nico Peaks, and I'm an alumni. I graduated in spring of 2016, and during my time at NC State, I was very involved in university theater, and I did band books for 3 of my years that I was there. And band books has always been an important thing to me. So I'm glad that I was asked to be brought back as a coordinator and the alumni contact, and actually one of the alumni performers for this. So yay! What to expect from tonight is you will hear a variety of readings and books that have been banned or challenged, all under the guise of censorship. And that can mean a multitude of things, from controversial expressions of religion or politics, or material that was deemed inappropriate for children due to either strong, explicit, or graphic language, violence, sexual content, or just things that people don't feel is good, like racism, sexual orientation, transsexuality, those kind of things. So with that being said, we are reading from these books. So giving you a warning now that there may be some language or words or topics that are going to be spoken about in a very blunt manner, because that's what this is about. So why not start off strong in that same respect with our first piece, Sex is a Funny Word.
Hey everyone, my name is Kenny Hertling. I graduated from NC State with my bachelor's in 2015 and then my master's in 2017. I currently live in Bloomington, Indiana. Now, the book that I will be reading from today is called Sex is a Funny Word by Corey Silverberg with illustrations by Fiona Smith. Now, the reasons why it was banned or challenged specifically is for the sex education. So I do have a bit of a content disclaimer for you all. My presentation of this work will include words that you're not used to hearing in a public setting, similar to what Nico is describing. So, are you ready? You sure? Penis, clitoris, erection. Now, the language itself is part of the challenge. The fact that these concepts are introduced to young minds is another reason why it may have been banned. Now, this also goes into detail about other parts of human anatomy, different types of relationships, and the LGBTQIA+ topics. Now, I picked this book for 3 different reasons. The first is the way that this book discusses relationships. It talks about the aspects that you might call a significant other, a partner, wife, husband, girlfriend, any of those aspects. So it gives those topics and really helps the reader understand that there are different terms for different aspects that people don't always use. The next concept is the concept of touch. And there's also the idea of consent that speaks through every page of this book. All right, now, some of these words, very few of them, I've added for transition. This is more of a graphic novel, graphic illustration, so not all of it is one large block of text. So, without further ado, sex is a funny word. Everyone has their own idea of what sex is. Some people think they don't know anything about sex. Some people think they know it all. All of us have questions about sex, and all of us have answers too. Now, the first thing you should know about sex is that it's a word. Some words always mean the same thing. Other words have many different meanings. If you want to learn about sex, there are a few other words that can help. These words are trust, respect, joy, and justice. These aspects are given characters throughout the show, or throughout the book. Now, when talking about sex, we also talk about erections. Most bodies get erections, but they only happen in certain parts of your body. If your body has a penis, you might have noticed that it sometimes is soft and bendy, and sometimes it gets hard and doesn't bend. And when it's hard and doesn't bend, that's an erection. Now, if your body has a clitoris, you might have noticed that sometimes it feels soft, and sometimes it feels a bit harder or firmer. When it's firmer or harder, that's an erection. Erections can happen when people touch ourselves to feel good, but they also happen at other times. During the night when we're asleep and first thing in the morning when you get up, erections happen even if we are not doing anything at all. Now, another piece we talk about with sex is touch. Some people say touch is magic. Touching someone can change the way they feel. Touch can make a hard day a bit easier or a lonely day a bit less lonely. Some touch can feel like helping. Touch can help someone feel good, help them get something done they couldn't have done on their own, or help them notice something new in the world. Some touch can feel like hurting. Touch can turn someone from happy to sad. Everyone feels touch differently. A touch that makes you feel good might make someone else feel bad. That same touch might be welcome one day and unwelcome the next. One way to show respect and to build trust is to ask before you touch someone. Now, once you know each other, you probably won't ask every time, but with a new person, asking is one way of making sure your touch helps and doesn't hurt. Now, in some families and communities, hugging and kissing as a way of saying hello or showing respect or showing love. A parent or family member may expect you to give them or someone else a hug or a kiss. They may ask you to do this even if you don't want to. Now, anytime you are not comfortable with touching someone or having someone touch you, you can always talk about it. If you don't feel like hugging or kissing or even shaking hands, there are lots of other ways to show respect or to let someone know you care. Sex is a funny word, and words are important. Like all words, the words we use to describe ourselves and our relationships can be used by others in ways that help us and in ways that hurt us. It helps when we get to choose what we call ourselves and our relationship. It helps when we get to choose who we want to have relationships with. And it helps when every relationship we have includes trust, respect, joy, and justice. Now, again, my name is Kenny Hertling. Thank you very much. This was an excerpt from Sex is a Funny Word by Corey Silverberg and Fiona Smith. And up next, you have more fun stuff for us to talk about. Thanks for joining me.
Hello, my name is Sun and I graduated from NC State in the spring of 2018, and I'm currently in New Delhi, India. I will be reading a passage from Haruki Murakami's Kafka on the Shore. This is originally a Japanese book belonging to the magical realism genre and is translated by Philip Gabriel. It is currently banned in several countries' public schools, and in the January of 2019, prompted by this book, a lawmaker in Maine tried to pass a bill that would remove the exception that allows public schools to use obscene material for educational purposes. Her objections were with the book's graphic language, describing sexual encounters as well as rape, which she deemed inappropriate for public school students. I would like to let the book defend its own self against these allegations by quoting it. Quote, "Closing your eyes isn't going to change anything. Nothing is going to disappear just because you can't see what's going on. In fact, things even will be worse the next time you open your eyes." End quote. Apart from being one of my personal favorites, I chose this book because it makes you question yourself and makes you look deeper within your heart. It deals with classic philosophical questions of fate versus free will and gives a third alternative. In the words of my favorite character from this book, we have an experience like a chemical reaction that transforms something inside us. When we examine ourselves later on, we discover that all the standards we've lived by have shot up another notch, and the world's opened up in unexpected ways. This book has been that experience for me, and although graphic and sexual in places, it would be immensely disrespectful to reduce a book such as this to just that. I will now be reading the passage from chapter 1, page 8. I'm not trying to imply that I can keep up this silent, isolated facade all the time. Sometimes the wall I've erected around me comes crumbling down. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes, before I even realize what's going on, there I am, naked and defenseless, and utterly confused. At a time like this, I always feel an omen calling out to me, like a dark, omnipresent pool of water. A dark, omnipresent pool of water. It was probably always there, hidden away somewhere. When the time comes, it silently rushes out, chilling every cell in your body. You drown in that cruel flood, gasping for breath. You cling to a vent near the ceiling, struggling, but the air you manage to breathe is dry and burns your throat. Water and thirst, cold and heat, these supposedly opposite elements combine to assault you. The world is a huge space, but the space that will take you in, and it doesn't have to be very big, is nowhere to be found. You seek a voice, but what do you get? Silence. You look for silence, but guess what? All you hear over and over and over is the voice of this omen. And sometimes this prophetic voice pushes a secret switch hidden deep inside your brain. Your heart is like a great river after a long spell of rain, spilling over its banks. All signposts that once stood on the ground are gone, inundated and carried away by that rush of water. And still the rain beats down on the surface of the river. Every time you see a flood like that on the news, you tell yourself, that's it. That's my heart. Thank you. That was Kafka on the Shore, and I am Sun.
Hello, my name is Nat Conti, and I graduated from NC State in 2015 and currently live in Raleigh, North Carolina. Today, I will be reading an excerpt from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This story was challenged or banned for its disrespectful take on religion, as we will see in the following excerpt where we meet the ruler of the universe. This story has been with me throughout most of my life in its various media, and it is one of the first stories to get me to not accept everything at face value, to accept absurdity, and more relevant to today's issues, it suggests that we ask questions about what we take for granted and to broaden our perspective. The major problem, one of the major problems, for there are several, one of the many major problems with governing people is that of whom you get to do it, or rather of who manages to get people to let them do it to them. To summarize, it is a well-known fact that those people who must want to rule people are, ipso facto, those least suited to do it. To summarize the summary, anyone who is capable of getting themselves made president should on no account be allowed to do the job. To summarize the summary of the summary, people are a problem. And so this is the situation we find, a succession of galactic presidents who so much enjoy the fun and palaver of being in power that they very rarely notice that they're not. And somewhere in the shadows behind them, who? Who can possibly rule if no one who wants to do it can be allowed to? The noise on the rain of the roof of the shack was deafening within, but went largely unnoticed by its occupant, whose attention was otherwise engaged. He was a tall, shambling man with rough straw-colored hair that was damp from the leaking roof. His clothes were shabby, his back hunched, and his eyes, though open, seemed closed. In his shack was an old beaten-up armchair, an old scratched table, an old mattress, some cushions, and a stove that was small but warm. There was also an old and slightly weather-beaten cat, and this was currently the focus of the man's attention. He bent his shambling form over it. "Pussy, pussy, pussy," he said. "Coochie, coochie, coochie, coo. Pussy wants his fish. Nice piece of fish. Pussy want it?" The cat seemed undecided on the matter. It pawed rather condescendingly at the piece of fish the man was holding out, and then got distracted by a piece of dust on the floor. "Pussy not eat his fish. Pussy get thin and waste away, I think," said the man. Doubt crept into his voice. "I imagine this is what will happen," he said, "but How can I tell? He proffered the fish again. Pussy think, he said, eat fish or not eat fish. I think it is better if I don't get involved. He sighed. I think fish is nice, but then I think rain is wet, so who am I to judge? He left the fish on the floor for the cat and retired to his seat. Ah, I seem to see you eating it, he said at last, as the cat exhausted the entertainment possibilities of the speck of dust and pounced onto the fish. I like it when I see you eat fish, because in my mind you will waste away if you don't. Fish come from far away, he said, or so I'm told. Or so I'm imagined I'm told. When the men come, or when in my mind the men come in their 6 black shiny ships, do they come in your mind too? What do you see, pussy? He looked at the cat, which was more concerned with getting the fish down as rapidly as possible than it was with these speculations. And when I hear their questions, do you hear questions? What do their voices mean to you? Perhaps you just think they're singing songs to you. He reflected on this and saw the flaw in the supposition. Perhaps they are singing songs to you, he said, and I just think they're asking me questions. He paused again. Sometimes he would pause for days just to see what it was like. I think I must be right in thinking they ask me questions. To come all that way and leave all these things just for the privilege of singing songs to you would be very strange behavior. Or so it seems to me. Who can tell? Who can tell? Perhaps some other people are coming to see me, he said. 100 yards away, pelted by the torrential rain, lay the Heart of Gold. Its hatchway opened and 3 figures emerged, huddling into themselves to keep the rain off their faces. In there, shouted Trillian above the noise of the rain. Yes, said Zonywoop. That shack? Yes. Weird, said Zaphod. But it's in the middle of nowhere, said Trillian. We must have come to the wrong place. You can't rule the universe from a shack. They hurried through the pouring rain and arrived wet through at the door. They knocked, they shivered, the door opened. Hello, said the man. Ah, excuse me, said Zonywoop. I have reason to believe. Do you rule the universe? Said Zaphod. The man smiled at him. I try not to. Are you wet? Zaphod looked at him in astonishment. Wet? Doesn't it look as if we're wet? Well, that's how it looks to me, said the man. But how you feel about it might be an altogether different matter. If you find warmth makes you dry, you better come in. They went in. They looked around the tiny shack. Zonywoop with slight distaste, Trillian with interest, and Zaphod with delight. Hey, said Zaphod, what's your name? The man looked at them doubtfully. I don't know. Why? Do you think I should have one? It seems very odd to give a bundle of vague sensory perceptions a name. He invited Trillian to sit in the chair. He sat on the edge of the chair. Zonywoop leaned stiffly against the table, and Zaphod lay on the mattress. Wow-wee, said Zaphod. The seat of power. He tickled the cat. Listen, said Zonywoop. I must ask you some questions. All right, said the man kindly. You can sing to my cat if you'd like. Would he like that? Asked Zaphod. You better ask him, said the man. Does he talk? Said Zaphod. I have no memory of him talking, said the man. But I am very unreliable. Zonywoop pulled some notes out of a pocket. Now, he said, you do rule the universe, do you? How can I tell? Said the man. Zonywoop ticked off a note on his paper. How long have you been doing this? Ah, said the man, this is a question about the past, is it? Zonywoop looked at him in puzzlement. This wasn't exactly what he had been expecting. Yes, he said. How can I tell that the past isn't a fiction designed to account for the discrepancy between my immediate physical sensations and my state of mind? Zonywoop stared at him. The steam began to rise from his sodden clothes. So you answer all questions like this, he said. The man answered quickly. I say what it occurs to me to say when I think I hear people say things. More I cannot say. Zaphod laughed happily. I'll drink to that, he said, and pulled out a bottle of Jenks spirit. He leaped and handed the bottle to the ruler of the universe, who took it with pleasure. Good on you, great ruler, he said. Tell it like it is. No, listen to me, said Zonywoop. People come to you, do they, in ships? I think so, said the man. He handed the bottle to Trillian. And they ask you, said Zonywoop, to make decisions for them about people's lives, about worlds, about economics, about wars, about everything going on out there in the universe. Out there, said the man. Out where? Out there, said Zonywoop, pointing at the door. How can you tell that there's anything out there, said the man politely. The doors closed. The rain continued to pound the roof. Inside the shack, it was warm. But you know there's a whole universe out there, cried Zonywoop. You can't dodge your responsibilities by saying they don't exist. The ruler of the universe thought for a long while Zonywoop quivered with anger. You're very sure of your facts, he said at last. I couldn't trust the thinking of a man who takes the universe, if there is one, for granted. Zonywoop still quivered but was silent. I only decide about my universe, continued the man quietly. My universe is my eyes and my ears. Anything else is hearsay. But don't you believe in anything? The man shrugged and picked up his cat. I don't understand what you mean, he said. You don't understand that what you decide in this shack of yours affects the lives and fates of millions of people? This is all monstrously wrong. I don't know. I've never met all these people you speak of, and neither, I suspect, have you. They only exist in words we hear. It is folly to say you know what is happening to other people. Only they know if they exist. They have their own universes of their eyes and ears. Do you believe other people exist? Insisted Zonywoop. I have no opinion. How can I say? But don't you understand that people live or die on your word? It's nothing to do with me, he said. I am not involved with people. The Lord knows I am not a cruel man. Ah, barked Zonywoop. You say the Lord. You believe in something. My cat, said the man benignly, picking it up and stroking it. I call him the Lord. I am kind to him. All right, said Zonywoop, pressing home his point. How do you know he exists? How do you know he knows you to be kind, or enjoys what he thinks of as your kindness? I don't, said the man with a smile. I have no idea. It merely pleases me to behave in a certain way to what appears to be a cat. Do you behave any differently? Please, I think I am tired. Once more, I am Nat Conti, and this was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Thanks for joining.
Hey everyone, my name is Darby Madewell. I graduated from NC State this past May, and I'm currently living in Raleigh. I will be reading from The Amber Spyglass, which is the third book of the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. You may have heard of the His Dark Materials trilogy from its recent HBO adaptation, but it wasn't always so popular. It was originally banned and called Atheism for Children because of its criticism of religion. It acts as an inversion of John Milton's Paradise Lost, but one where the author commends humanity for its original sin. The trilogy follows two children, Lyra and Will, whose destinies are intertwined. The excerpt I'll be reading from comes from chapter 37, the point in the books where Lyra and Will have fallen in love, but have realized that they won't be able to stay together forever. I've remembered this specific passage since I read the series with my parents in middle school, and it seems particularly applicable now at a time where many of us are being kept apart from the people that we love. Oh, Will, she said, what can we do? Whatever can we do? I want to live with you forever. I want to kiss you and lie down with you and wake up with you every day of my life till I die, years and years and years away. I don't want a memory, just a memory. No, he said, memory is a poor thing to have. It's your own real hair and mouth and arms and eyes and hands that I want. I didn't know I could ever love anything so much. Oh, Lyra, I wish this night would never end. If only we could stay here like this and the world could stop turning and everyone else could fall into a sleep. Everyone except us. And you and I could live here forever and just love each other. I will love you forever, whatever happens. Till I die and after I die, and when I find my way out of the land of the dead, I'll drift about forever, all my atoms, till I find you again. I'll be looking for you, Will, every moment, every single moment. And when we do find each other again, we'll cling together so tight that nothing and no one will ever tear us apart. Every atom of me and every atom of you. We'll live in birds and flowers and dragonflies and pin trees and in clouds and in those little specks of light you see floating in sunbeams. And when they use our atoms to make new lives, they won't just be able to take one. They'll have to take two. One of you and one of me. We'll be joined so tight. They lay side by side, hand in hand, looking at the sky. Once again, my name is Darby Madewell, and that was The Amber Spyglass, the third book of the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman.
Hello, my name is Yamila Monhay, and I graduated from NC State in fall of 2015, and I currently reside in Raleigh, North Carolina. The book I will be reading from this evening is called The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. The book was originally banned in Katy, Texas due to the featured drug use and explicit language used in the book, and they also felt that the subject matter covered in the book was not appropriate for children. The reason I chose this book is because it's important for the world to understand that the injustices Black people face every day do not only affect adults, but they affect children as well in ways we can never imagine. In a world where the government is against Black people, it's socially irresponsible to ignore these issues. Ignoring these issues is the exact reason why people like Breonna Taylor are unable to get the justice they deserve in this country. Here is The Hate You Give. Khalil was one of my best friends. We knew each other since we were babies. If he were here, he'd point out that he's 5 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days older than me, but that's just who Khalil is. I mean, was. He was a jokester. Even when things were hard, he'd somehow find some light in it, and he had a big heart. I know that some people call him a thug, but if you knew him, you'd know that that wasn't the case at all. I'm not saying he was an angel or anything, but he wasn't a bad person. He was a kid. He was a kid, and people keep bringing up the fact that he may have been selling drugs and that he was a thug, and I hate it. If people knew why he sold drugs, they wouldn't talk about him that way. Khalil's mom is a drug addict. Anybody who knew him knew how much that bothered him and how much he hated drugs. He only sold them to help her out with the situation with the biggest drug and gang leader in the neighborhood. His mom's life was in danger. That's the only reason he'd ever do something like that. He wasn't even a gang member. He never wanted to fall into that type of life, but I guess I don't understand how people can make it seem like it's okay that he got killed if he was a drug dealer and a gangbanger. It seems like they always want to talk about what he may have said and what he may have done and what he may have not done. I didn't know a dead person could be charged for his own murder, you know? We did everything the officer asked that night. We didn't curse. We didn't yell. I have never been so afraid for my life. Khalil was so worried about me. He opened the door to check on me. The last thing he said was, "Star, were you okay?" He never threatened that officer. And that was the last thing he said. And then the first gunshot went off. And I remember Khalil's body jerking, blood spattering from his back, and he held onto the door to keep himself upright. And then the second gunshot. And Khalil gasped for air, and then the last gunshot, and Khalil looked at me stunned. I held him in the street and saw the life leave his eyes, and the officer pointed his gun at me. And he kept it on me until the other officers arrived. You know, people keep asking me if I'm afraid of cops, and I don't know. My uncle's a cop. I know that not all cops are bad and they risk their lives, you know, and I'm always scared for my uncle, but I am tired of them assuming, especially when it comes to Black people. This all happened because he assumed that we were up to no good because we're Black and because of where we live. We were just two kids minding our own business, you know? His assumptions killed Khalil, and it could have killed me. And now I wonder if he wished he'd shot me too. My name is Yamila Monhay, and that is The Hate You Give.
Hi there, my name is Rhonda Lemon.
And I'm Christian O'Neill.
And we both graduated from NC State in 2014 and currently reside in Durham, North Carolina. Tonight, we'll be reading you the oft-challenged children's story, A Day in the Life of Marlon Bundo. The book is written by Jill Twiss with illustrations by E.G. Keller, and every purchase of this book supports the Trevor Project and AIDS United.
We chose this book because it normalizes the LGBT plus community for children, and it encourages children to challenge adults that push arbitrary rules. Some Americans challenge this book because they say it pushes an agenda onto children. And while we're still waiting to hear back as to what exactly that agenda is, if it's for promoting love and friendship, then I say we're all for it. In the meantime, here's Marlon Bundo. Hello, my name is Marlon Bundo, and I am a bunny. I live with Mom, Grandma, and Grandpa in an old, stuffy house on the grounds of the U.S. Naval Observatory. That's because my grandpa is the vice president. His name is Mike Pence.
But this story isn't going to be about him because he isn't very fun. This story is about me because I'm very, very fun. This is the story of my very special day.
My very special day started out like every other day. I woke up all alone. Then I ate a fine bunny breakfast all alone. While I watched the news all alone. You see, sometimes old stuffy houses are also lonely.
After breakfast, I hopped to the garden to look at the flowers and say, hello down there to the bugs. Hello, Phil. Hello, Dennis.
That is when I saw him. He was a big fluffy bunny with the floppiest floppy ears and the bushiest bushy tail. He was bunny beautiful. I was standing still, but being near him made me feel like my heart was still hopping.
My name is Marlin, I said, but my family calls me Botus. It's short for Bunny of the United States. It's a long story. My name is Wesley, and my family calls me Wesley, said Wesley.
Wesley and I hopped together all around the garden. We hopped over daisies. We hopped over tiny carrots that weren't ready to grow up and be lunches yet. We hopped over Phil and Dennis.
Once we had hopped through every part of the garden, we didn't want to stop hopping, so we hopped right inside the old stuffy house. We hopped up and down the creaky stairs and made beautiful creaky stair music together.
We hopped through the kitchen and maybe left a few bunny prints.
We hopped through very boring meetings with very boring people.
It was a very good hop. It was the best hop. And I realized something. When I hopped with Wesley, my old stuffy house didn't feel lonely anymore.
At the end of our hop, I said, Wesley, I don't want to hop without you ever again. And Wesley said, that's funny, because I never want to hop without you, Marlon Bundo, ever again. And we both said we will get married and hop together forever.
Hello, everyone, we said to all the animals in the garden. Hello, Phil and Dennis the bugs, and Pumpernickel, who is a badger, and Scooter, who is a turtle, and Dill Prickle, who is a hedgehog, and Mr. Paws, who is a very good dog. Hello, all of you. We are getting married so we can hop together forever.
Hooray, said Phil and Dennis the bugs, and Pumpernickel, who is a badger, and Scooter, who is a turtle, and Dill Prickle, who is a hedgehog, and Mr. Paws, who is a very good dog. Hooray, said all of our friends, because that is what friends say.
Wait, said a scary voice. You can't get married.
We looked around and saw that the scary voice was coming from the stink bug. Let me tell you a little bit about the stink bug. The stink bug was in charge. He was important. None of the other animals could quite work out why he was in charge or how he was important, but he was. And that meant he made the rules. That meant all the animals listened to him, even though he was, and this is true, very stinky.
Boy bunnies don't marry boy bunnies, said the stink bug. Boy bunnies have to marry girl bunnies. But this is the bunny I love, said Wesley. And this is the bunny I love, said me, Marlon Bundo. Just being next to Wesley made me a little braver.
Too bad, said the stink bug. I am the stinkiest, and I am important. I am the stinkiest, and I am in charge. Boy bunnies marry girl bunnies. Girl bunnies marry boy bunnies. This is the way it has always been. You are different, and different is bad.
The other animals whispered nervously among themselves. Pumpernickel, who is a badger, came forward. I'm different too, he said. I eat my sandwiches crust first. I'm different too, said Dill Prickle, who is a hedgehog. I read the ends of books before I read the beginnings, just to make sure they're not too sad for me.
I'm different too, said Mr. Paws, who is a very good dog. Well, sometimes I sniff butts, and I don't know why.
Everyone is different, and different is not bad, said Scooter, who is a turtle. Different is special. Wait, said Mr. Paws, who is a very good dog and also a very smart dog. Wait a minute. We get to decide who is in charge. We get to decide who is important. We can vote.
And on this very special day, all the animals voted on who they wanted to have in charge. They chose...
Not the stink bug. Hooray, said me, Marlon Bundo. Hooray, said Wesley. Hooray, said all of our friends, because that is what friends say.
No! Boomed the stink bug. Boy bunnies can't marry
You are
boy
not
bunnies.
in charge! So Wesley and I got married. We had 2 handsome groom's otters named Muffins and Cubby, and a flower mouse named Hiccup. We ate and drank and danced the hokey pokey. Dill Prickle was especially good.
And the ceremony was performed by a cat named Pajama, who brought her wife as a date.
After we ate and drank and danced, we went home together.
We have to get some sleep, Marlon. Tomorrow we leave on our bunny moon. Because it doesn't matter if you love a girl bunny or a boy bunny or eat your sandwich backward or forward.
Stink bugs are temporary.
Love is forever. Once again, my name is Rhonda Lemon.
And I'm Christian O'Neill.
And that was A Day in the Life of Marlon Bundo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Quetti. I graduated from NC State in spring of 2014, where I was a part of a couple of the banned book projects as well. And I currently reside just outside of New York City. The book that I chose to do an excerpt from today is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Some of you may know it as the Netflix television, or excuse me, the Hulu series, which has gotten rave reviews by many. But it was originally from a book written in 1985 by Margaret Atwood. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, it takes place in a dystopian world of totalitarian reign, where women have no rights and are used to produce children for people of power who cannot have children themselves. So voices are really not heard in amongst women and anyone who speaks up against it. And something really important and fascinating that I read about when Margaret Atwood wrote this book was that she took things that she saw in society, but she presented them in this book in a more shocking way. So bringing to light what we still need to work on, what we need to voice for, because especially as women today, we're still working. We're trying to get, recognized the same way that men are in many areas and in many job-related scenarios in many cultures. Women are still trying to raise their voice, and we're doing a really good job, but we certainly are still fighting that good fight. So I wanted to honor her words by choosing this piece, and I hope you enjoy it. This is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. The night is my own time to do with as I will, as long as I am quiet, as long as I don't move, as long as I lie still. The difference between lie and lay is always passive. Even men used to say, I'd like to get laid. Though sometimes they said, I'd like to lay her. All this is pure speculation. I don't really know what men used to say. I only had their words for it. I lie, then, inside the room, under the plaster eye in the ceiling, behind the white curtains between the sheets, neatly as they lay, and step sideways out of my own time. Out of time. Though this is time, nor am I out of it. But the night is my time out. Where should I go? Somewhere good. In a park somewhere, with my mother. How old was I? It was cold. Our breaths came out in front of us. But there were women burning books. That's what she was really there for. A woman handed me one of the magazines. It had a pretty woman on it, with no clothes on, hanging from the ceiling by a chain wound around her hands. I looked at it with interest. It didn't frighten me. I thought she was swinging like Tarzan from a vine on the TV. Don't let her see it, said my mother. Here, she said to me, toss it in, quick. I threw the magazine into the flames. It rifled open in the wind of its burning. Big flakes of paper came loose, sailed into the air. Still on fire. Parts of women's bodies turning to black ash in the air. Before my eyes. But then what happens? But then what happens? I know I lost time. There must have been needles, pills, something like that. I couldn't have lost that much time without help. You have had a shock, they said. I would come up through a roaring and confusion like surf boiling. I can remember feeling quite calm. I can remember screaming. I felt like screaming, though it may have only been a whisper. Where is she? What have you done with her? There was no night or day. Only a flickering. After a while, there were chairs again, and a bed, and after that, a window. She's in good hands, they said, with people who are fit. You are unfit, but you want the best for her, don't you? They showed me a picture of her. Standing outside on a lawn, her face a closed oval. Her light hair was pulled back tight behind her head. Holding her hand was a woman I didn't know. She was only as tall as the woman's elbow. You've killed her, I said. She looked like an angel. Solemn, compact, made of air. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen, white and down to the ground. I would like to believe this is a story I'm telling. I need to believe it. I must believe it. Those who can believe that such stories are only stories have a better chance. If it's a story I'm telling, then I have control over the ending. Then there will be an ending to the story and real life will come after it. I can pick up where I left off. It isn't a story I'm telling. It's also a story I'm telling in my head as I go along. Tell rather than write, because I have nothing to write with and writing is in any case forbidden. But if it's a story, even in my head, I must be telling it to someone. You don't tell a story only to yourself. There's always someone else. Even when there's no one. A story is like a letter. Dear you, I'll say, just you, without a name. Attaching a name attaches you to the world of fact, which is riskier, more hazardous. Who knows what the chances are out there of survival? Yours? I will say you like an old love song. You can mean more than one. You can mean thousands. I'm not in any immediate danger, I'll say to you. I'll pretend you can hear me. But it's no good. Because I know you can't. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mary Elizabeth Lennon. I graduated from NC State in 2016, and I currently live in Brooklyn, New York. I am reading today from Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume. This book has been challenged in the past due to its discussions of preteen sexuality, puberty, and religion. The main character, Margaret, comes from an interfaith home, but she really struggles with where she feels comfortable, and she's not all that impressed with the idea of God or religion as a whole. She's also very concerned with getting her first period, her first kiss, her first bra. And I think those are such universal concerns as a young woman. And I think it's really important in what can be such a frustrating and isolating time for young people, young girls, to see their experiences and their concerns reflected back in their literature. I think it can be a real comfort to know that they're certainly not alone in their feelings and that things do improve. So thank you very much. After my bath, I was supposed to go to my room and rest, so I'd be in good shape for the party. I went to my room and closed the door, only I didn't feel like resting. What I did was move my desk chair in front of my dresser mirror. Then I stood on the chair and took off my robe. I stood in front of the mirror. I turned around and studied myself sideways. Then I got off the chair and moved it closer to the mirror. I stood back up on it and looked again. My head looked funny with all those rollers. The rest of me looked the same. Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I hate to remind you, God. I mean, I know you're busy, but it's already December and I'm not growing. At least, I don't see any real difference. Isn't it time, God? Don't you think I've waited patiently? Please, help me. I hopped off the chair and sat down on the edge of my bed, putting on my clean underwear and tights. Then I stood in front of the mirror again. Only I didn't look at myself for very long this time. I went into the bathroom and opened the bottom cabinet. There was a whole box of cotton balls. Sterile until opened, the package said. I reached in and grabbed a few. My heart was pounding, which seemed stupid because what was I so afraid of anyway? I mean, if my mother saw me grab some cotton balls, she wouldn't say anything. I use them all the time, to put calamine on my summer mosquito bites, to clean off cuts and bruises, to put on my face lotion at night. But my heart kept pounding anyway because I knew what I was going to do with the cotton balls. I tiptoed back to my room and closed the door. I stepped into my closet and stood in one corner. And I shoved 3 cotton balls into each side of my bra. Well, so what if I was cheating? Probably other girls did it too. I'd look a lot better, wouldn't I? So why not? I came out of the closet and got back up on my chair. This time, when I turned sideways, I looked like I'd grown. I liked it. Are you still there, God? See how nice my bra looks now? That's all I need, just a little help. I'll be really good around the house, God. I'll clear the table every night for a month at least. Please, God. That was Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Bloom. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Arthur Freeman, and I graduated from NC State in 2017, spring. I am going to be doing a piece from Catch-22 by Joseph Heller this evening, which I chose because this book is really an important part of my high school years. It touches on the madness of life, war, and the absurdity of bureaucracy. And it was banned because of its controversial stances on the war, on religion, and strong language. But I want to continue to share the absurdity and the meaning that we can find within unavoidable circumstances. Like the great director Mia Self once quoted, "Life viewed from the mind is a comedy, and from the heart is a tragedy." And I believe Joseph Heller touches on both aspects of ourselves, of both of those aspects in a beautiful way. So I'll be reading from chapter 18. Thanksgiving Day came and went without any fuss, while Yossarian was still in the hospital. The only bad thing about it was the turkey for dinner, and even that was pretty good. It was the most rational Thanksgiving he had ever spent, and he took a sacred oath to spend every future Thanksgiving in the cloistered shelter of a hospital. He broke his sacred oath the very next year when he spent the holiday in a hotel room instead in an intellectual conversation with Lieutenant Scheisskopf's wife, who had Dory Diz's dog tags on for the occasion, and who henpecked Yossarian sententiously for being cynical and callous about Thanksgiving, even though she didn't believe in God just as much as he did. "I'm probably just as good an atheist as you are," she speculated boastfully. "But even I feel that we all have a great deal to be thankful for, and that we shouldn't be ashamed to show it." "Name one thing I've got to be thankful for," Yossarian challenged her without interest. "Well," Lieutenant Scheisskopf's wife mused and paused a moment to ponder dubiously. "Me." "Oh, come on," he scoffed. She arched her eyebrows in surprise. "Aren't you thankful for me?" she asked. She frowned peevishly, her pride wounded. "I don't have to shack up with you, you know," she told him with cold dignity. "My husband has a whole squadron full of aviation cadets who would be only too happy to shack up with their commanding officer's wife, just for the added fillip it would give them. Yossarian decided to change the subject. Now you're changing the subject, he pointed out diplomatically. I'll bet I can name 2 things to be miserable about for every one you can be named to be thankful for. Be thankful you've got me, she insisted. I am, honey, but I'm also goddamn good and miserable that I can't have Dory Does again, too. Or the hundreds of other girls and women I'll see and want in my short lifetime and won't be able to go to bed with even once. Be thankful you're healthy. Be bitter you're not going to stay that way. Be glad you're even alive. Be furious you're going to die. Things could be much worse, she cried. They could be one hell of a lot better, he answered heatedly. You're naming only 1 thing, she protested. You said you can name 2. And don't tell me God works in mysterious ways, Yossarian continued, hurtling on over her objection. There's nothing so mysterious about it. He's not working at all. He's playing. Or else he's forgotten all about us. That's the kind of God you people talk about. A country bumpkin. A clumsy, bungling, brainless, conceited, uncouth hayseed. Good God, how much reverence can you have for a supreme being who finds it necessary to include such phenomenon as phlegm and tooth decay in his system of divine creation? What in the world was running through that warped, evil, scatological mind of his when he robbed old people of the power to control their bowel movements? Why in the world did he ever create pain? Pain? Lieutenant Scheishoff's wife pounced upon the word victoriously. Pain is a useful symptom. Pain is a warning to us of bodily dangers. And who created the dangers? Yossarian demanded. He laughed caustically. Oh, he was really being charitable to us when he gave us pain. Why couldn't he have used a doorbell instead to notify us? Or one of his celestial choirs? Or a system of blue and red neon tubes right in the middle of each person's forehead? Any jukebox manufacturer worth his salt could have done that. Why couldn't he? People would certainly look silly walking around with red neon tubes in the middle of their foreheads. They certainly look beautiful now, writhing in agony, or stupefied with morphine, don't they? What a colossal, immortal blunderer, when you consider the opportunity and power he had to really do a job, and then look at the stupid, ugly little mess he made of it instead. His sheer incompetence is almost staggering. It's obvious he never met a payroll. Why, no self-respecting businessman would have hired a bugler like him as even a shipping clerk. Lieutenant Scheishoff's wife had turned ashen in disbelief and was ogling him with alarm. You better not talk that way about him, she warned him reprovingly in a low and hostile voice. He might punish you. Isn't he punishing me enough? Yossarian snorted resentfully. You know, we mustn't let him get away with it. Oh no, we certainly mustn't let him get away scot-free for all the sorrow he's caused us. Someday I'm going to make him pay. I know when. On the judgment day, yes. That's the day I'll be close enough to reach out and grab that little yokel by his neck and stop it! Stop it! Lieutenant Scheishoff's wife screamed suddenly and began beating him ineffectually about the head with both fists. Stop it! Yossarian ducked behind his arm for protection while she slammed away at him in feminine fury for a few seconds, and then he caught her determinedly by the wrists and forced her gently back down on the bed. What the hell are you getting so upset about? He asked her bewilderedly in a tone of trite amusement. I thought you didn't believe in God. I don't, she sobbed, bursting violently into tears. The God I don't believe in is a good God, a just God, a merciful God. He's not the mean and stupid God you make him out to be. Yossarian laughed and turned her arms loose. Let's have a little more religious freedom between us, he proposed obligingly. You don't believe in the God you want to, and I won't believe in the God I want to. Is that a deal? Thank you. That was Joseph Heller's Catch-22.
Hi everyone, Nico again. So I will be reading Two Boys Kissing by David Leviathan. Now this book was banned for very obvious reasons if you look at the title of it. Two Boys Kissing. So this book was banned and challenged due to inclusion of GLBTQIA plus content. But beyond just that, this book was also burned in some cases, and I doubt even read because people couldn't get over the cover of it, which had on it, as you could guess, two boys kissing. And I just think that's so ridiculous and petty that something is banned just because you don't agree with it. When a book like this has so much meaning, it provides that representation for certain kids to be like, hey, that's me, or I get this. And that's just so important. And to have it banned and told it's not appropriate for school is the same as telling those kids they're not appropriate for school, or the city or society or this country as a whole. And that's just messed up. And beyond just how inclusion is important, it's also important because it exposes young students to different lifestyles other than theirs. And that's very meaningful. And I wish that was more of a thing when I was growing up, because I still face discrimination to this day. Even while I was in college, I could walk down the street with a friend of mine at night. No forms of PDA are shown or anything at all, and still get called a faggot from a screaming truck passing by. I was an education major, so I went to a lot of diversity workshops. And we would do exercises where you'd stand or raise a hand when they would call out certain groups and you were a part of them. And that went from race, religion, socioeconomic status, if you were a minister's kid, if you were a military kid, if you moved around a lot, if you had a lot of brothers or sisters, etc. But when they got to the GLBT community, I was the only person to stand, even though I knew for a fact that I was not the only one representing them there at that time. So I've heard it's okay to be gay if you're a student, it's okay to be gay if you're part of the staff or faculty, and that it's not okay to be gay even when it's in a book. And that's just completely and utterly dumb, for lack of a better word. And that's why I picked this book. And the passage that I picked in particular sort of shows those voices that are on the same side and even more vocal for anyone who says, I just don't agree with homosexuality. So here's my piece from Two Boys Kissing by David Leviathan. At a certain point, the music he's been listening to loops around, and he doesn't want to listen to it again. When he ejects the CD, the radio comes on. A station that's top 40s during the afternoon and evening, but talks way too much in the mornings. Normally, he would just put in more music, but Avery's ear is drawn to the word gay. And the way it's being said, dismissively, contemptuously. This is what the gays do. They stop at nothing to be in our faces with their disgusting habits, and then they act like they're the ones being treated badly. I don't want to look at that. I don't want my kids to have to look at that. The host comes on. So, you don't think they have the right to be there? I don't think the founders of our country really had two homosexuals on their minds when they wrote the Constitution. That's all I'm saying. And we have our next caller. I don't understand why they're not being arrested. Why aren't the police arresting them? It's a public place. You know, the police are protecting the two boys, and, well, they should be ashamed of themselves and start doing their job. Yeah, I'm with you there. Next caller. I think what the boys are doing is brave. Brave? Tell them to join the army if they want to be brave. to be in public. They should just get a room. Next caller. Avery doesn't know what these people are talking about. And since he's driving, he can't go online to check. The sensation he has is a strange, difficult one. He knows these people aren't talking about him. But at the same time, they are talking about him. In their blanket dismissal, they're also talking about us. Because so many of them are our age or older, stuck in previous decades of thought. The gays of today, the gays of yesterday, we're all the same bother, all the same wrong. Not people, really, just something to yell about. If this goes on, what's next? Men having sex with dogs in a church? Is that free speech? The phrase rush to judgment is a silly one. When it comes to judgment, most of us don't have to rush. We don't have to even leave the couch. Our judgment is so easy to reach for. None of these people who are talking know Craig or Harry, or even care about who Craig or Harry are. The minute you stop talking about individuals and start talking about a group, your judgment has a flaw in it. We make this mistake often enough. You can't have a world record like if you're two guys. It's not a world record. Avery knows he should put on the music, blot out these voices. But none of us can stop listening. Because what is more transfixing than the sound of people hating you? And in the darkest parts of our hearts, we used to think that maybe they were right. I hope they're giving each other AIDS, the caller tells the radio host. I hope that when they're dying of AIDS, they show that on the internet too, so children will know what happens when you kiss like that. The host chuckles and asks for the next caller. Thank you. I am Nico, and that was Two Boys Kissing by David Leviathan. And that's the end of our reading. So Mia or Marian will now guide us into our Q&A session. Thank you.
Yay. Here is where I wish we could all be in the space together and actually see your faces and share some applause for our wonderful performers. We've got a few minutes here at the end. If anyone would like to drop a question into the chat or into the Q&A, we're happy to share those with our presenters and hear their responses. Let me ask you all a quick question, those of you who've done banned books before. What was it that inspired you to do the banned books performances initially?
I'll start first since I'm doing a lot of stuff. What really started was just another opportunity to do a performance type of deal. And for me in particular, banned books, I was an education major, so this had relevance to it. But once I started doing it and looking more into it and the kind of books and material out there that was banned that I never got to read while I was still in school, it just became so much more important to me in how I constantly had this feeling of, God, I wish I read this when I was younger. Or hearing that people want to take this away. And I'm like, why? But this book is so good. It's so meaningful. Why would we do that? So that's sort of, I guess, not really what made me start, but what made me continue want to keep doing this.
Diana, what about you?
Hi, yeah, I joined, I think it was my freshman year was the first one that I did, if I'm remembering the timeline correctly. And to Nico's point, I think you don't, until you start really like researching monologues, it was so just shocking to me how many things have been booked and how many important pieces have been booked for things that um, just unbelievable. Like I know like there's so many that we know of as controversial, but I know I grew up viewing those books as, even if they were controversial, they were so important. They were so crucial to your education. They were so crucial to understanding so many different cultures and people and surroundings. And so when I realized from that research just how much was banned for groups of kids, like kids who really who can benefit from these beautiful pieces, it was heartbreaking to me. So you know, with each time that I got involved each year, I tried to do a different, you know, variety, but it's really educated me. And I think the program, first of all, combining university theater with the libraries as well, I think was really special and really cool to kind of have those two merge. And Marian, I know that was all you're doing because this was originally your idea. So just a huge shout out to you. But I think the messaging, the message especially today, is more relevant than ever, that you know, things that are talked about as being controversial are probably things we should read. So truly an honor. Thank you so much.
Marian, can you jump in and actually talk a little bit about the history of the program and why you started it here at NC State?
Sure. So I come from the public library in Durham County. That was my first library job, and we had started doing a similar version of this with local actors. And it's just such an interesting way to explore a book, to do it on stage. I mean, usually reading is such a solitary experience, and a lot of the books that have been covered over the years are books that I've read, you know, by myself. I've read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, like 5 million times. But I think having an audience and to listen to them in a group is really powerful. And every year I'm always so impressed that the students have a different take on it. They find, you know, just such an enormous selection of these books. And then every year we hear from students who say, gosh, I had no idea that The Lorax was banned, or Speak was banned, or these books that were really important to people. Eleanor and Park, you know, some of the really kind of most, you know, very popular books from the last several years have been challenged and banned. The Harry Potter series is challenged. So it's just really fun to sit in an audience. And I think, Mia, your exploration through Reader's Theater is a really great way to do it as well, where you really focus on the text, even though these beautiful performances from the students come through in that medium as well. So that's why I love it so much.
Yay. For whatever reason, I'm not able to turn my video on, but you would see me smiling if you did. I have been reading the delightful book, The Hilarious World of Depression by John Moe. And in the 3rd chapter, he has this wonderful quotation where he's talking about his mother gave away all of the scrap things that he had built a fort out of to read in their basement, and he shared the following: Mom followed through on her threat some weeks later, and I acted like I didn't care. I knew that it was an abnormal thing to care about, that it was ultimately shameful. When things were weird and shameful, I knew we did not speak of them. And I think the impulse to challenge, the impulse to ban books comes out of that. I am uncomfortable. This feels weird, unfamiliar, and therefore should be shameful because I feel shamed by this. And there's something so wonderfully freeing about openly sharing content. And I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown, who is the sociologist who really burst on the scene with her viral video that was talking about shame as it's an emotional state that removes us from connection with other people, and that books are ways to connect us with ideas and with the parts of ourselves that oftentimes we don't have the words for initially. And so I'm always struck by how important this work feels every single year. I'm excited, looking forward to next year, where hopefully we can all be in the same room again. Although I'm sure, can I ask how many of you, if you can do a thumbs up or raise your hands if you are outside of the triangle? We've got about 20 people left. We got one hand raised already, but full people, not many. All right, so I hope to see you all in person next year to celebrate 10 years of banned books, which is super exciting. Are there any questions for our presenters before we wrap up for the evening?
I'd just like to do one final thank you to Nico, who's just did such an extraordinary job from the beginning to the end. He's really, I see all of us clapping for Nico. He's just done a magnificent job. It was a lot of heavy lifting. We've never done it in this format before, and he just did a lovely, seamless, inventive, and compassionate job. So thank you, Nico.
Thank you, and thank you to all of the NC State alums who've taken time out of their busy, busy lives to revisit and share with us. We know that you're doing wonderful things out in the world, and you are always, always welcome home. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. We hope you'll join us further for university theater programming and programming through the NC State libraries. Have a good night.